have our dash cam, we have our directions, and we are going to the only estate sale in Indiana today. There are the signs. Now, I had to drive about 3.5 hours to get here for another appointment. I came early to go to the estate sale, but the estate sale has been running a few hours, so we'll see what's here. I figured it was worth driving the extra 30 minutes from where my appointment was to do it. It's quite a whirlwind trip today. This home was owned by an artist, and so I imagine a lot of people came here to get cheap art supplies, but because of that, it's got a studio and there's stuff all over. First thing we see is a dirndl and a bunch of old records. It looks like there's some compendiums that are older, but it looks like they're classical. And classical just doesn't seem to sell. There's a certain amount of digger to this one, and then certain things that are priced. I actually like these boxes as much as I like anything else. Oh, I really like this. 200 wholesale's actually fair for that. An old Gerard turntable, neat lid, $55. Motel ashtray. Rainbow Inn. Okay, we're in the kitchen here. We're about 3 hours in, so we'll see what the first wave left. These are actually kind of fun. $3, if I'm reading that right. Crock here, and number 8 is priced at $60. I've started my hold pile. They price the big stuff and the rest is all open to negotiation, they say. Different kind of a wreath. They do a lot by price dotting, I see. Ooh, a very 70s thing. A lucite block that you put pictures in. This was quite the thing back in the day. I don't think I've seen one since I was a kid. I like the box. I think I'll get that. Carboy is $10, and that's actually a pretty good price for that. It doesn't have any graphics, but it's got some design. And I think for that price, because I've got plenty of room, I might as well take it. There's our information on the bottom. Oh, this is Chrissa out of Mexico. That means it's 1980s, right before everything switched to plastic. Some art books. People are having fun piling stuff up. Custom tailoring from Sears. Wow, you can see all their swatches. This will tell you why Sears clothing did not keep them in business. But they've got a bunch of them. I used to have a Sears collector. Unfortunately, she's not with us anymore. Or I'd have gotten some of these for her. 100% polyester. You can imagine how good that smelled after a while. I like these little step stools. They're Kik-Steps. They've got little wheels under them so that they just sort of roll around on their own. This doesn't have a price. It's awfully filthy. I'm thinking maybe they'll give me a good deal. Lots of books. Look like some subjects that are interesting to study, but I don't know whether there's anything left of value. A lot of the art books, of course, went right away, as you can imagine. Onondaga. Someone must have been from Syracuse. Coffee table books. I mean, books still sell, but you've got to be particular about what you buy. Lots of patterns. Let's see what era. These look like early 80s. That's not really where the market is. We're looking more for this era and earlier. There is some call for some patterns, but there are a lot of patterns that nobody buys. So you really are looking for the graphics, in my opinion. And also, what is the most posh-looking frock? There's the 70s for you. Lots of stuff that's just sort of thrown in heaps when you get down to the bottom here. It's pretty organized in terms of, I mean, I think they were smart. They obviously had a lot of stuff here, so they picked out the plums and they did those first. I believe that's a nice Cambridge pattern. All right, well, I just met another reseller who knows me from YouTube. Okay, it's this 10 for the stack, because at that price, the cameo pattern with the lovely lady dancing there is good enough that I would probably buy those, because they will definitely glow under a black light. And then here's the tray that matches that bowl. The tray at $10 seems like more of a buy. All right, let's see what we have on these shelves. A bunch of silver plate. I have a feeling everybody in town came here because there wasn't any other sale in the area today. In fact, there wasn't any other estate sale anywhere in southern Indiana. A lot of people are afraid to have estate sales in December, and I've got to tell you, they've always done well for me when I've had them. Cute pieces here, but all kind of your usual 1910s era transferware. This one has a little more design. Diet pill. This cut to clear in the ruby flash decanter is nice at $25. That's not a bad price. Looks to be bohemian. There you see it a little better out here. Nice quality glass. Finish looks a lot like Waterford, but I don't know them to have ever decorated this way, so I'm still convinced it's bohemian. Nice piece. The corner shelf is interesting too. It's $60. The openwork sides are a little strange, but if you had things on it, then I think it would look really good. They took my foot for me. That was nice. That's an Avon piece there. The lamp doesn't grab me, but this shade is great. It almost feels like mica. It's a plastic to look like it, but it's pretty good for a 60s era. More books and more records. These people were definitely bookish. Oh, and then down the long hall to the studio, I assume. Landscape as culture. A bunch of art pieces that I think were done by the people of the house. Cardboard houses. Whole village of them. Read-Write study board. Oh, I see, an easel from about 1950. In fact, it says Canadian patent 1950. Good Formica top on a different table. Another corner cabinet. The classic 1960s, 70s clock for $30. Royal typewriter for $25. If it wasn't for this mold that has accrued here, that would be a pretty good price. Some more art books. Paul Clay, $20. These definitely sell sometimes, but they're newer. They've got UPC codes, so I don't think I would be interested in those. Another one of those things that looks different when you see it in person. They're only $10 each, so they're priced right. This could be the best piece of furniture in the house. It's an old cabinet made of wainscot, probably from about 1930, priced at $125. Yep, and they were saving a lot of things for projects, so there's a lot of wood, a lot of big tools as well. And here's another neat cabinet. This is actually a great look. And they had turned it into a workbench by putting a piece of plywood on the back, which you could easily remove. But they have this one at $350. I understand it's a neat looking piece, and that probably is what it would sell for. Well, I have to say the staff were very nice. I'll have to, oh, too bad that's not for sale. That's cool as can be. And I do like some of the artwork, but because they're not artists, I really know. Ah, here we go. Like this one, okay, they know this artist because this is Lois Main Templeton, and I thought it looked like it was an interesting piece. They are asking $900, but this is a listed artist. And wow, that is a fun modern pop of color. This is an R. Atkinson Fox print. Similar to Parrish, a little more literal in the design, a little less blended and ethereal, but very nice. All right, we'll see if there's anything downstairs. Ah, here we go. These are the things I saw in the ad that I was not seeing that now I'm very happy to see. I especially like this little piece. This looks 1930s, and it is in fact a false graph with the York label. I'm not sure what the blue mark means. I'm going to have to look up. And then there's these little pieces here. I wonder again if they didn't make these because I'm not seeing any signatures. It's definitely 70s. The work seems good. And I have a feeling that these were all made here. Probably right here in this house. I think these aren't selling because people can't attribute them, but I think they're really good. Moss Rose butter dish. Because it's a butter dish, I would be tempted. This is going to be a Japanese edition from the 1960s. It would have had a paper label that's now gone. Because it's a butter dish, I think I'm going to get this. It's a classic old pattern. It's a newer version of a classic old pattern, and usually that wouldn't be attractive, but butter dishes are something that people are always looking for. because they get greased out and then they're not good anymore. Stack of dishes here. This is Homer Laughlin. Interesting, it's got the old Household Institute Priscilla pattern mark on it. So it was done by Homer Laughlin for Household Institute to sell. A little bit of enamelware, but that's white, not an easy color to sell. The Streetcar Named Desire. This whole box seems to be album liners, and you would think, why would you spend time looking through these? But if you can find the old ones that have the advertising, and they're advertising something like the Beatles Revolver album with the butcher cover, those liners can be worth $50 or $100. So I'm going to take a moment just to see. Okay, here's one with a bunch of albums on it. Rhino Records. That's going to be a little bit later in time. The Runaways with Joan Jett. I don't see anything controversial or valuable on the Rhino Records Center, though. Carolyn Crawford. It'd be nice if we found some that were 60s era, more of a chance. But, aha, let's see what you are. We've got a few in here. I'm going to pull the whole stack out and we'll see what these look like. Recent releases. Okay, that is classical. Here we have some stuff in color. Creedence Clearwater, The Blackbirds, Stanley Turrentine, Bill Evans, Thelonious Monk. A lot of great players, but nothing unusual or scandalous. Aha, and look, the Osmonds. Our best to you all. There were a lot of Osmonds. There were 6 brothers and then Marie, and yet she still managed to keep smiling. It says private, but I think we can come in because I see things and I see price tags. They said they had to take a whole lot of stuff out of here to be able to set up this sale, and I believe it. $15 on the big Foot Locker is a good deal, but I don't have room for anything that big. This piece is an odd little piece that looks like it's American bisque, looking at the foot with that hourglass shape in the middle that's glazed and the 2 big unglazed pads. This is right out of the Bicentennial. I honestly need it for the shade, however. I like the old fan with the green blades, and I'd be tempted, but the base is a little scraped up. Empty case, but good style, but a little beaten up for my taste. Ooh, do I need any Christmas wrap? It's certainly cheaper here. Silk tapestry here, but the figures on it are very loose. The faces aren't really very defined, and that makes this, to me, a harder piece to sell. It's only $10 though. This looks like it's hand-formed, but not terribly old. It's just to look old. It's probably 70s. Big old Fenton basket just lingering back here where no one really saw it. I didn't even see it until right now. Look how huge it is. In this size for that price, yeah, it looks pretty good. This pretty old vase with the transfer pattern is nice, but it has lost a little bit of its top. So why am I picking it up and turning it over anyway? We can tell it's damaged, so I'm not going to buy it, but this is how you learn. This is a Strasbourg piece. There's your mark. If you saw this piece without a mark, which is entirely possible because it was done around 1900, now you know. Well, there's drip glaze pottery and there's drip glaze pottery. These lighter pieces with the frostier edging are Hull. McCoy is a little more to the brown. And then we have this one from Robinson Ramsbottom that's really dark, so not all drip glaze is the same. All right, we made it to the back corner. We've got some director's chairs, some bits and parts of old dinnerware sets, nothing that looks terribly exciting. And so I think it is time to move on. This is Flipside Estate Sales, and I just wanted to show you who this was now that I've shopped the place, because I had a lot of fun, and I met some really nice people who work for them, and I made a big pile over here, so we're going to talk to them about pricing.
Unfortunately, sometimes people say that, you know, estate sales can be kind of sad, but really it's kind of a beautiful, like, celebration of life where, you know, people can come in, find things that they love and appreciate, and they're going to take it home, give it a new life. It's going to have a second life somewhere else. So
exactly,
instead of just getting dropped off at, you know, A, B, and C donation site, or
into the dumpster,
put things in the dumpster, then it's going to have a new life and a new purpose. So,
that's so awesome. Well, this is Jess, who runs Flipside, and it has just been a pleasure to do this, and I agree completely. I had a woman who I did an estate sale for, and she said, it's like you brought my family back to life for a weekend, and I thought that was the neatest compliment, and I love that she got that. So,
and we love to highlight those kind of things like on our social media, so we'll definitely like kind of give some content and some story behind items so that people really kind of have that meaningful connection to things. So,
oh, that's really awesome. I think that's great, because a lot of times as soon as the piece leaves the property, the story is lost. So what a great idea. I know too, from my experience, people call and they have stuff, but they don't have enough for a sale, and
we take things for
it's
consignment
great.
or online auction as well.
Well, I'm very impressed by what you do, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
We are looking for parking so we can meet our collector and give her her prizes. There are mineral water wells in Martinsville, and it used to be what the town was known for. Now it's mostly known as the home of the Morgan County Courthouse. My collector said the one place in Martinsville that you might find antiques and vintages here. I've been to Traderbaker's flea markets and other places. Sometimes they're pretty good. We're going to take a chance and see if we can find anything. We see this sign a lot in antique stores. It depends where you are, whether they can legally enforce that or not. But of course, it is proper to pay for things if you break them.
These are Stanford pottery from about 1950.
This is Jean, and there was, I don't know, looky there, they're being reproduced. Good to know. Look at that Made in China label right there. It does have the right mark on the bag. Jean and Sandy were the originals from the 50s. So let's see how we can tell in case that label's been peeled off, which often is the case. Notice the really, really, really glossy nature of the colors. No wear on the bottom at all. So this is a good thing to know, because I could see where I might have been fooled, but then look at the fake crackling in the hair. It's a brand new piece. It has no crackling anywhere else, and yet the hair is. So now we know these have been reproduced, and we just learned together what to look for to tell the difference. I always like the shape of this particular aluminum tray, and these flower handles I always thought were nice. $10 is about the right price. This is 1930s, and you can see the mark on the bottom there. This is a Rodney Kent. That was one of the more prolific makers of aluminum, and they did nice involved designs. It's great looking stuff. It still doesn't sell for a lot, but I like it. Well, it looks like a mix of new and old, like these flea markets often are, but I see old things right away in the first few spaces, so that's a good sign. There isn't an antique mall or shop anymore in this town, so because of that, this would be the place that a lot of this might go. This is Hall China. The market's very faint, but it is there. I recognize the piece because it has this windshield effect around the lid. $11.99 is a pretty good deal on that. Turn of the century oak piece there, a washstand with the hanging rail for your towels there. About 30 years before that, you would have had this sort of an affair as your commode, where you put the chamber pot in the right cabinet there, and you have the marble with the shelves where you would put your candles so that you could see yourself in a mirror that would have hung above. Nice walnut burl. This is only $79.99. It is amazing how inexpensive some Victorian furniture is right now. Cheaper than anything comparable new of the same quality. The land of salt and pepper shakers here. I see a few 50s era ones. They seem like they're fairly plain. Some of the little angels. I believe a lot of these are left in. Let's take a look. Yes, and there's the mark later on too. Let's see if we see any bargains in any of this glass. I see some novelties that are cute. This is a 1960s little piece here, probably pilgrim glass with that shape. $12 is not an unreasonable price. Here's a little pink vase. They have Fenton ? But they are correct. It is Fenton. One of the melon-shaped vases from the 1950s. $15 is a pretty good deal. That might go with me. $12 on that crackle. This has a lot of shape to it. I think the more shapely they are, the more interesting they are to collectors. Nice pieces, but not super cheap prices, but yet here we have this vase, $3. These were done for shearing. I believe that these actually might have been done by Highland for them. They were an advertising piece, and that's actually very inexpensive. There's an old Rockingham glaze teapot from the Victorian era, or maybe even earlier. It's only $20. Let's see what kind of shape this is, and if this is the original lid, which I doubt because the glaze seems to be a different color. And yes, I do have to take this tape off, which if it was a proper fitting top, probably wouldn't be necessary. So that makes me suspicious, but we'll take a look. Yeah, it has lips that go under something, and it's not this piece. So that is a marriage, unfortunately. $12 in the porta bar here. If you need to take your hooch on a picnic with you, well, this is the perfect thing right out of the late 60s, early 70s. It's even got its little tag on, so it knows who it came with. Valentine beer tray, a little too chipped up, but that is something that is rather collectible now. Westinghouse Union City, 3 million hours with no lost time for accidents in the 1958 to 62 period. This was done by Kettle Springs, a small company in Alliance, Ohio. And while it's a rather specific purpose, I actually think that being an ashtray and being a big logo like this, it might actually sell. Since it's inexpensive, I might take it. YMCA Hotel Chicago. Now this is interesting because it's an old building, specifically the YMCA, and $4. I think that's probably a winner. That's from the 1950s. This one's only $1, and this is from one of the Shriners temples. Murat. This no doubt is a house art tray from Pennsylvania, made in the 1960s. The Schaefer beer tray, 1960s, from American Can Company. There's the Canco mark. $7 is a great price, but it's got dents. Well, the blow molds that are left are the ones that were probably priced higher than people were willing to pay. $70 on Santa, although he's cool with that pipe, and $50 on the snowman. I don't really know how vintage these are. This is an old dictaphone. Way back when, 1920 probably. It's a little rolling cart, and people make these into tables as they've done here. They have 95 on it. And speaking of blow molds, this elephant toy box from about 40 years ago is something that we don't run into too often. This one's priced at $115. We are in the Christmas season, and this is Kurok with the Christmas mouse. It's priced at $18. That may be full bore on this, but it's an interesting piece, and a lot of people don't know that Kurok did seasonal stuff as well. Modernists love this, of course, made in Monterey, California. In the Christmas season, these can sell for as much as $30. That's not enough room for me to buy it, but it's an interesting thing to look at, and you can see the inlays there because look at the texturing. When we take the light glare over it, you see how this is actually laid in before they do the final seal coat over it. Well, I don't know if we'll find anything amazing here, but we are seeing vintage stuff, and that's the purpose of what we do. So if you're enjoying this, please do like it. Please subscribe if you are not a subscriber, because that way you can click the bell to be notified, and we'll let you know when future videos are coming. A little different style on this particular chest of drawers. It's 1930s. Somewhat derivative of waterfall furniture because it has the break from one level to another, but let's see what the extra features are. The extra features are these side doors, so you could use this very nicely in a main room as a place to hold bar items or things that you need for the kitchen. It does look like it needs some new hardware. The price on this 1930s era piece is only $99.95, which is the same price they have on these big iron wagon wheels. And then here's the dresser that goes with the mirror. I love the mirror. Look how neat this is. 1930s. I mean, this thing is needing a little bit of veneer and a little bit of restoration, but the mirror is really, really neat with the shape and all of these different pieces and all of these stems between the different pieces that make it appear as if it is budding into flowers. I always really like these old vanities because of that. The collector I just visited said that she does find things here occasionally, and she's a big Fenton collector, so I know that means that we might find some glass, and we're seeing some interesting furniture. I hope we find some unusual things we don't see all the time to show you too. Well, here's something unusual right away. I really like this. This is a screen. It looks like 1940s with this etching, and it is a trifold. So it has the panes on top, and then you have the folding mirror for a screen. So you could use this as a mirror wall, you could use it as a dressing screen, you could use it to divide off an area in a great room. It does have a little bit of silvering problem here. If it didn't have that problem, I might make an offer on it, because I think this might be worth $175 or $200 or $2.25 in the right place. I haven't seen one like it before. Well, we are getting my wish. This is interesting to me. It's Randolph-Macon Women's College. It's reverse painted in a mirror in a style that would have been typical of things from the Victorian era. It was popular again in the mid-20th century. Items from this particular college seem to sell well, I've noticed, particularly some of the dinnerware that was done by a particular designer for Lambert and Scammell. But I think at $20, this is just interesting enough. What's your name?
My name is Cindy.
Well, Cindy is a dealer here, and she's got really cool stuff, and she said that she and her husband buy a lot of storage lockers. It's amazing to me you're finding such good stuff in storage units. That's because you've got a lot of really cute things, and you've got some really neat old things, and this little piece of furniture has got to be 1880s. It's just amazing what people leave behind. And you just told me something really interesting I'd never thought about.
Yes, the ones we look for are climate-controlled ones, because usually that's better items, more expensive items, because people have the money really to put it in a climate-controlled area, and it's things that they really don't want to get molded and mildewed, and you'd be surprised how much mold gets on one when it's sitting on concrete for 5 years or 10 years, and you pull out a piece of furniture and it's just coated in mold because it wasn't in a climate.
Absolutely, because it wasn't stored properly. Well, thank you. That is a wonderful hint. I really appreciate that. Is this somebody's little suit from, yeah, they had to be like maybe a 4 or 5 year old. Oh, that is really neat. Oh, and look at that label in there.
And so, you know, it has some...
Chinchilla, wow.
So super cute.
So stinking cute. I really like that. Oh, how fun. Well, I'm so glad that you're finding good things, and thank you for bringing them. Well, it'll be fun for me too. This is why it's so great in this industry. It's collaborative, people help each other out, they've got different ideas. I haven't ever bought a storage locker, but now I'm thinking, if I do, I know which one to look for. Well, this little space is a hodgepodge, but I do see some older things in it. Now this looks really old, but this was made for a long time, this blue opaline, and unfortunately it is cracked. But they were honest about it at least, which is good. It makes me feel more confident about looking in the rest of the space, and I do see some older dishes here, the Pyrex with the platinite rim. These came in various colors. The lime green sells really well. And then there's this. This is Viking glass. It's just a little votive. It's a great deep green color. You can see a little bit of the label left. Only $5.50, so that will go in the cart. I'm starting to have a few things. And here's a cool piece. This is indeed a Holmgard Per Lütken vase. Unfortunately, it has a lot of staining on the bottom, but he was definitely a very influential designer. The interesting thing about Per Lütken, as good a designer as he was, he had never worked in glass before he was hired by Holmgard. Well, this is certainly a big, huge place. I have only seen about a third of it so far, so we're going to keep on moving here. Lots of books and a cute pair of ship bookends. Lots of ship bookends from the 20s because the Ironsides sailed around the country and was displayed all over the place, everywhere from Boston to Everett, Washington. $48 on these. They do have the nice painting on them, which helps. A little bit of old furniture. They do have this piece. This goes along with the Hall Crocus line. This was made for them as a go-along. It's in metal, and it is to be your coffee dispenser. They only have $11 on it. That's actually pretty inexpensive if the condition is good. But it looks a little rough in the finish. And it was actually done by Club Aluminum, who went on to do those kind of neat looking kitchen cookware items in the 60s that are pretty collectible now with the enameling on aluminum. It's in poor shape, but boy, Racks are hard to find these days, and if it could be straightened out, I could use it at shows, I suppose, but the price would have to be cheap, and $129 doesn't really qualify. This has been in a barn a little too long. A pair of smaller snowshoes here for $75, and these days that's actually not out of the realm of possibility, because snowshoes are pretty collectible. They do have leather, which is important, not plastic. They do have natural hide. It's all there. These could be polished up and look a little sharper. They would probably sell in the $125 to $150 range. If I could guarantee the $150, I'd probably take them at $75, but I don't know for sure that I would get that. I really think that they're more likely to sell in the $110 range, and that's just not quite enough profit for me, but they are nice and well priced for what they are. Antique shoe forms are kind of fun in display. A 7 Triple E, wow, someone had really white feet. Some of them have some pretty cool graphics too. They're called shoe lasts, so you see Morton Last Company, Cincinnati, Ohio. These are $10 each. At $10 each, there would have to be a matched pair that would go together to make them worth buying. February 1940 is the date on that one. Daddy brought home the bacon, all right, and somebody's very happy about it. So happy that they framed this store sign. It's a cute graphic from the 1930s, and priced at $20, and the frame is pretty good. Let me see if I can get this to stop shaking. There we go. Well, these Fenton hobnail candlesticks would look good with the bowl I bought earlier, but they're $18 for the pair. And the set together doesn't sell for enough to make it worth me getting it to put with the other piece. I like old bird cages, but this one isn't old. Now this is new, but it is still made by the successor company to Hendrix. They've been making these since the 1860s, like it says there. Dress forms and sewing forms. This one's a Singer True Shape. Especially when they're adjustable, they become rather collectible and very useful to a lot of people as well. I know some dealers who actually use these and pin costume jewelry all over them, but generally not on the True Shape, because the True Shape was made to be adjustable for a tailor, and that's why it's a little more expensive. It's not just a solid body. It's $19.95. Next to it we have this fish dish with flowers painted in it. It is Italian. It has a little bit of age because that stamp was done in the 1980s. And you know, for $2, I just don't know how I say no to that. Royal Copley with the angel, and you could put a candle in one part and a plant in the other. The Hall refrigerator dishes at $15 each are not bad. These were the ones made to go in the refrigerators, which is why it says made exclusively for Westinghouse by the Hall China Company. Cocktail mixer, a whipster. I like that it has the box, even though the box isn't in great shape. It's revolutionary, it's new. Well, it was 70 years ago. It makes cocktails better, faster, and easier than old-fashioned shaker method. Well, this looks interesting. I haven't seen this before, actually, and I've collected barware a long time. It has a patent number that associates with the late 1940s. It is something different. I think I might like to have this just because I suspect a barware collector would pay $30 for it. I do wish the box and the graphics were better, but it at least tells you what to do with it so you could actually use it. Apparently you remove the bottom cap where that screw was and you pump air into it, and then you shake it. It aerates any mixture, forced air under pressure into each tiny particle, giving smoother, finer texture. Well, apparently the whipster sells for about $30 without the box, so I'm going to go ahead and get it. I think it's cool. If no one wants it, well, I'll just keep it in my own collection. Peanut butter tins are very collectible. This one's a little later in time, right before they switched to glass jars, and it was a juvenile motif, and so a lot of people kept these. That's why this one is only $15. It's worth maybe double that. But some peanut butter tins, some of the older ones, can be worth a lot of money. If you didn't live somewhere where Ma Bell was queen, then you ended up with GTE or some smaller carrier. And this one is an automatic electric phone from the 1950s or 60s. We'll say 60s because it's got an area code space here. It appears to be converted to a new plug, but the dial sticks. And that's why you got to check these things, because I was just about to buy that, but I'm going to have to leave it. Another beer tray. This one's Adam Scheit out of Norristown, Pennsylvania. $20, 1950s. Another Pennsylvania beer, Reading beer. And there is a cool chalkboard. Get friendly, get modern. Modern is about 50 years ago, or 60 actually in this case. I wish it was in better shape. It's $80. This is neat from an old tavern, but they have it priced at $125, so more than I can pay. I would love to find a good price on this piece. This is another piece of Kurok. It is the Pelican. This would be great for Florida. Whoops, I'm going to have to put that back. Things are a little hard to get to in this space. The surface has a lot of dirt on it. The question is, will that clean up, and how much do they want? They want $19.99, so it really would have to clean well, or else it's not going to be a buy. Unfortunately, I see scratches in it, and those will not come out. Kurok is great stuff, but if you didn't treat it well, and a lot of people didn't because, oh, it's just a plastic thing, so they scraped it and scratched it, and they're not always in good shape. We used to have the hardest time selling these at estate sales, but lately these old hand crank ice cream makers are starting to really take off and sell well. This one's priced at $90, and this is the old school one, the Peerless Freezer by Dana, and that's probably about the right price these days. This is the second pachinko machine I've seen here. The other one wasn't in as good shape. This one's very clean. I don't know where the balls are, but they say it includes them, so maybe they have them up at the desk. It has not been tested because it's going to be wired to Japanese wiring, and you had to convert these to use them in the USA, but they light up and they bling and they flash, and they're really fun. They were a form of gambling device in Japan. I know they want to keep the set together, but how is a customer supposed to even contemplate this when it is wrapped up in cellophane? You knew there had to be one, but it's only $14. That's a pretty good price. That one seems to be very clean and have the Bakelite handles. And next to it is this piece of Delft pottery. This is what Delft looked like when they were doing modern grippy glazes in the 1960s. It's really a cool piece. $14. I am seeing people starting to collect this. Oh, somebody was naughty. I see we're missing one. Wear it in bad health. This is not necessarily a place where people look things up. They just put prices on they think are appropriate. Now this one is priced about right. Nice McCoy strawberry vase there with the long-tailed bird. The whole double cornucopia at $49.99 is perfectly fine. And there is another Bennington style pitcher. This one seems that it does have the right top because you turn it to get it out past the lip, but it has a chip, darn. Interesting piece though, Rebecca the Well. This is going to be rather old. Indiana is a rather old state, and this is probably early 1800s. The reason I brought up the pricing is because the curious thing in this space is this just says California Pottery $24.99. It's Cal Originals. I recognize the piece, but I think that price is for both pieces. And if it's for both pieces, yes, there it says Cal Style, so that's California Originals. I'm going to check these over very carefully using the palm of my hand because it's hard to detect chips, and with so many edges, your hands get callous, so use the palm of your hand and not your fingers to go around all these edges. That is the way that you will be able to tell whether you feel any little nicks, cracks, things you might have missed otherwise. But if these are in good shape for that price for both, I'll absolutely take them. Back here we have a little piece that younger folks might say, oh, Fenton. Well, no, this is Victorian. This is what inspired Fenton. This is Bristol glass from about 1880. Cute little piece. A little bit of a chip there, though. Copper luster mug. I like the blue bands. $16.99. They say early 1900s. This is actually a lot older than that. This is probably in the 1860s vicinity. That's when copper luster first really was popular, were the 1840s, 50s, 60s. This space looks like it could have some fun things, and I especially am interested in this wall rack with the longhorns. It's priced at $90. I imagine that's what I would get for it. The whole pottery basket's got a chip. It's only $15. This is a strange little Nelson McCoy piece that I have not seen, but it's got a chip on the foot, also $15. The yellow and blue vases are $20 and $30, so they definitely priced for condition. This little guy is so strange. He's a mustard or jam server. He's $15. Very clearly a Japanese piece from the 1950s. It's even got its original spoon. The koi grape leaf jardiniere here, you can see the factory errors. The koi still was not a really high quality producer at this point. $25. Seems like a pretty good price for the size of it. Good old cast iron kettle, $75 is not a bad price. These could certainly sell for more. Behind they have the cathedral bookends. I like bookends. I've sold these several times in my time. They're not uncommon, but they're old and they're heavy and they'll hold books well, and so they always sell. Plus they have a very lofty look to them. Actually, the college library where I went to school at the University of Washington looks a lot like that. $30 for the pair is not a bad price, but not cheap enough for resale. If you prize it, krylonize it. Old paint display stand here. I'm looking at it for $25 and thinking that, you know, the paint cans with legs are certainly strange enough that somebody will buy it eventually. But in the meantime, it's a chunk of useful shelving that is easy to put on a table and will bring things to eye level at a show. And I think I can make money on it as well, so I think we'll take this. The best thing is it comes apart, so it won't take a ton of room in the car. This one is Red Wing, marked $15. That's a pretty fair price for the two-tone. There's probably money to be made on that. This has no mark on it, just a number, but I believe this is Muncie pottery from here in Indiana. The two-tone glazing seems right. It's just a little piece. I might like to have that. I haven't had a piece of Muncie in ages. Imperial glass is often overlooked, and I think this is a rather nice piece. An interesting dusty rose color. I like the figures around the edge. It's got the paper label that tells us that this is probably a 1960s vintage. It certainly looks older. $30. That will be for a collector, not a reseller. I sold a whole bunch of Rooster and Roses for a dearly departed friend of mine. It sells pretty well. The question is, if you buy the oil bottle, does someone have the vinegar to go with it? It's only $10. $25 for the tray. They said the plates are as is. This was made, again, in Japan, and it does tend to chip. It's Yukagko, as you see with the label there. Early Provincial was their official name for it, but Rooster and Roses seems to be what the collectors all call it. And then a bunch of motto-ware. I've always been a fan of motto-ware. It doesn't sell for big prices these days, but it sells if you price it right. That one's got a little chip from Irvine. That's awfully cute, just a little mustard pot. The miniatures are sweet, $8 on that, $20 on this one. Many hands make light work. Remember that during the holidays when your relatives try to make you do everything when you have them over. And also remember this, a merry heart goes all the day. People have a tendency to assume that anything that's a small size is a salesman's sample. $99 is probably a perfectly fine price. You don't see the little bow front American oak chest. It's got a dark finish, but this is not a salesman's sample. They wouldn't have dragged something this big around. This is a small chest of drawers and very functional. Here's another good piece of Victorian furniture that's really cheap. This is Stick and Ball. It's $89. Yes, you would have to polish this back out. And yes, it is rickety. That's the problem. It needs to really be taken apart and re-glued. But if you did it, it has the fold-down music holder or magazine rack, depending on how you want to use it. What a cute little piece. I wish I was handier and could revive it. Genesee 12-horse ale. This was out of Rochester, New York. A regional beer that tried to go national. They actually sold it in Florida for quite a while. Enough New Yorkers had moved down there, they had a market. $30 is not a terrible price these days for that kind of a sign because Breweriana is just so popular. And then these are bottles we see fairly often. They are old. This one is pre-1900, and it is for a single malt whiskey out of Rochester, New York again. And then this one, Westerholm. These are two that we see fairly often. This particular one sells for about $25 typically. They've got 15 on it. They obviously know a little something about bottles. And there's another Genesee sign, also priced at $30. Now there's a real bird cage and it's on a nice stand. The dealer has only put their space number on, so I don't know how much it costs. It has a few things that are fun. Some of these 1960s and 70s era bagatelles. And this was still amusing enough to keep us kids busy. interesting shoe shine kit with everything in it. But I really like the Hubley dog doorstop there. It's $75. There's a little room in that. Not enough for me to buy it, but I like it. We're only looking for antiques and vintage, but flea markets can have a whole lot of stuff. This one has a whole bunch of scooters and ATVs for sale, even kid size, so Merry Christmas. My parents would not have let me have anything like that as a kid, but I could get this one now. Here's the standard Western Electric phone that was out about the same time as that other one that we saw. This was the AT&T version, of course. As console stereo systems became more and more of a thing, you start to see things like this. This is a Zenith stereo turntable on top of a music holder with the speakers. The speakers are actually pretty good. That's $100 for the whole set. For a certain collector, that would be a deal. Falstaff made about 600 different dinnerware patterns over their many, many years producing in the United States. Yorktown is the one everybody seems to recognize, that and the Villager pattern, its counterpart in beige. But there's Juniper here. This pattern is called Windsong. These are a lot of their 1980s era patterns that you're seeing here. And of course the Tea Rose was a pretty famous Falstaff pattern of later years as well. It's rusty on the top, but this is one of those ottoman fans. $60 is not a bad price for a 360 fan like that. This little basic orange stool is probably Cartel from Italy. At least I'm sure hoping it is. It's a little worn on the top, but I feel like for that price I should be buying this, and I think I'm going to give it a try. I'm not totally sure about it being Cartel, but I do feel confident in its vintage. And even though the top has some wear, well, it's a tabletop. And I think with things displayed on it, it will look acceptable and someone will buy it. So I am getting a cart full of stuff. We've had to arrange the wire cage to protect all the other stuff in there. Ben better get on it. There's only about 10 days left before Christmas.
If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.